welcome back to the deep dive. You know, if you ever feel like your life is just a series of open browser tabs in your brain,
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
right? Too many choices, way too many notifications, just a constant stream of information, and definitely too much stuff.
A ton of stuff.
If that sounds familiar, then this deep dive is, well, it's for you. We're going to try and get a handle on the just the overwhelming complexity of modern life.
And ask a really big question.
A huge one. How can we, as regular everyday people, find some genuine clarity and maybe even some joy in the middle of all this chaos?
It's true. I mean, the modern world just operates at this fever pitch, It demands constant input, constant performance.
Always on.
Always on. But the paradox is that all this complexity, it rarely seems to translate into actual happiness.
Not at all. We have more access to everything, more wealth, more connection than at any point in history.
And yet we're also seeing higher levels of anxiety, this deep sense of being scattered and, just spread too thin.
Exactly. And our guide for this deep dive is a psychiatrist who is also deeply rooted in the Buddhist community, Dr. Phang Cheng Kar.
And he offers this really powerful framework.
He does. He basically argues that trying to simplify your life by just focusing on the outside stuff, like, cleaning your garage or hitting inbox 0.
Which feels good for a minute.
It feels great for a minute, but he says it's just insufficient. True simplicity, he says, is an internal training. It's a training of the mind.
And that's really the core mission of what we're trying to explore here. We want to move beyond that that sort of aesthetic trend of just having less stuff.
Right, the minimalist look.
Exactly. And instead, focus on achieving less clutter, more clarity, and more joy. Dr. Kar really emphasizes that simplicity is a cultivated mental state. It's a wise practice, not just the result of a good spring clean.
Okay, so let's frame this whole thing. Let's unpack it with a foundational quote that really sets the stage for the entire discussion.
It sounds so simple.
It sounds incredibly simple, but in our consumption-driven world, it might be the hardest thing to actually grasp. Here it is. Contentment is the greatest wealth.
The Buddha.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And as complicated as that.
Hmm.
So if we're moving beyond just the look of a simple life, how do we even begin to define what Buddhist simplicity is? Because when I hear that word, my mind immediately jumps to, an empty room or someone meditating on a mountaintop.
And that's exactly the image we kind of need to dismantle. Buddhist simplicity, as it's defined, is living with just enough, without greed, without clutter, and with peace.
Okay, so just enough. That's the key phrase.
That's it. And the crucial distinction here is that it's all about cultivating inner freedom rather than just, prioritizing how things look on the outside.
So you could live in a simple hut.
You could. You could live in a simple hut and still have a heart that is just completely bound by the fierce craving for a slightly better hut. Or a hut with a better view.
That's a powerful point. I mean, I might have decluttered my entire apartment, but if I'm spending all my mental energy tracking my investments or obsessing about a future vacation, my mind is still completely cluttered.
The outer appearance of simplicity is just a mask in that case. It's just a performance.
So how do we make it an active practice?
Well, this is where the Buddha outlined 6 core elements. And these are not, suggestions for interior decorating. They are instructions for the mind.
Okay, what are they?
They are fewness of wishes, contentment, sense restraint, moderation in eating, seclusion or solitude, and energy or effort.
Wow. That list immediately just redefines the whole topic for me.
Ah.
It's not about how many things you own. It starts with fewness of wishes.
Right at the source.
It's not about rejecting pleasure. It's about sense restraint and moderation in eating. I mean, these are all about the internal operating system, aren't they?
Exactly, and that's why we have to call it a training. These elements, they all work together to conserve your most valuable resource, which is your mental energy.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Well, think about it. If your energy is constantly being sucked into this black hole of satisfying endless wants, that's the fewness of wishes part, or dealing with mental chatter, or just overindulging.
You've got nothing left.
You have nothing left in the tank for true reflection or for compassion or for just being present.
I wonder how difficult it is, though, to cultivate fewness of wishes in a world where literally every advertisement is engineered to create more wishes.
Oh, it is intensely difficult. It's like swimming upstream. And that's precisely why the practice requires wisdom and effort.
So there's a great analogy for this, right? The idea of pruning a tree.
Yes, it's the perfect analogy. Simplicity is not about hating the tree. It's not saying my life is awful, I have to cut everything down. That's just depression or withdrawal.
Right.
Simplicity is actually showing the tree love.
Yeah.
You're using wise effort to prune away all the chaotic, energy-wasting, non-fruit-bearing growth.
So the tangled, complicated branches, that's our unnecessary stuff, our overbooked social calendar, our endless scrolling, our need to constantly look a certain way.
Exactly. We cut away that clutter, and that, in turn, frees up the tree's energy. If we do that, wise pruning, all that energy can be directed toward producing the highest quality fruit.
Which is mental clarity, peace, and wisdom.
That's it. Simplicity is really just a tool for focus. It's not the end goal in itself.
Okay, so let's dive into some myth busting, because I think simplicity gets a really bad rap in modern culture. We've got 6 major misconceptions to clear up.
Let's do it.
And we have to start with the biggest one, the one that hits our cultural pressure point. The idea that simplicity is just laziness.
This is maybe the most common one. The false view is that a simple life means you're withdrawing from responsibility, you're not working hard, you're becoming a drain on society.
Because our culture equates being busy and complex with being important.
Completely. If your calendar is packed, you must be competent.
But the source material corrects this, right? It emphasizes that simplicity is actually wise effort, or virya.
Yes.
So what does unwise effort look like, and how does simplicity change that?
Unwise effort is, well, it's the hamster wheel. It's tirelessly chasing material goals that only make your life more complex. It's working 80 hours a week for a promotion that gives you more money, but also triple the stress.
Or spending a whole weekend meticulously cleaning a possession you barely even use.
Exactly. Wise effort, Virya, is about choosing what truly matters and then dedicating your energy rigorously to that chosen thing.
So it's not about working less hard, it's about working hard on the right things.
Look at the ultimate example. The Buddha. He lived an extremely simple life, one robe, one begging bowl, but he worked tirelessly for 45 years.
Traveling huge distances on foot, teaching, managing a huge community.
And traditional accounts suggest he slept only about 1 hour a day. I mean, that level of focus, sustained effort is only possible because he had eliminated every other distraction and complication.
So simplicity supports focus. It doesn't cancel out effort, it actually maximizes it.
It absolutely does.
That completely flips the script on what we think of as a work ethic. Okay, on to myth number 2, that simplicity means being naive or, gullible.
The false view here is that a simple person must be ignorant, easily tricked, or somehow just not very worldly.
When the reality is the total opposite.
The total opposite. True simplicity requires immense wisdom and discernment. It takes real wisdom to know what information to let in, which social situations to engage with, and, crucially, what to let go of without any regret.
It takes an incredibly clear and perceptive mind to avoid being taken advantage of, both by other people and, frankly, by your own internal cravings.
That's it. A simple person isn't stupid. They're often deeply focused and highly intelligent about what they allow into their life. The clear mind sees things as they are without the fog of all our fixed views and attachments.
It's the complex, grasping mind that is actually more easily deceived by desire.
Exactly.
Okay, myth number 3. This is the classic one, and it touches the very heart of our consumer culture. Simplicity is just poverty or deprivation.
Right, the idea that you have to suffer, reject all comfort, own absolutely nothing.
Live in a cave.
Yeah, and be miserable. The correction is that it's about contentment with having just enough. It's about being easily supported and not being fussy. A single person still have needs, clothing, food, shelter, medicine, but they're flexible and grateful for what they have.
And this is where that famous story of the king and the ascetic just drives the point home so perfectly.
See, it really does. It defines the difference between outer wealth and inner freedom.
So, set the scene for us.
Okay, so you have this wealthy king sitting in his beautiful palace gardens with an ascetic, a holy man who owns nothing. And as they're talking, the palace suddenly catches fire.
A disaster.
You'd think so. But the king, surrounded by all this priceless wealth, just sits there calmly. He watches the fire burn and says, "Infinite is my wealth, yet I own nothing. If the city burns, nothing of mine is burnt."
Wow. So he was wealthy, but his mind was completely unattached to it all.
He was mentally free. He saw the material world as temporary, even though he was living in it. Now, contrast that with the ascetic.
The guy who owns basically nothing.
Right. This man owns only a loincloth and a single begging bowl. The very picture of external simplicity. Yet when the fire gets close, he just panics.
He freaks out.
Totally. He screams, "My bowl! My only bowl is inside!" And he runs towards the destructive flames to save his single precious possession.
So the one who had nothing was actually the most attached.
The lesson is just undeniable. The king, surrounded by luxury, was free because he held on to nothing mentally. The ascetic, surrounded by nothing, was bound because he clung so fiercely to the little he had.
So the problem is not how much you have. The problem is the attachment.
That's the core of it. If we cling to our tiny, perfectly organized, minimalist apartment, we are that panicking ascetic.
That is a profound distinction. It moves the focus entirely from the bank account to the mind's grasp. Okay, let's move on to myth 4. Simplicity is just the minimalism trend.
This is a very contemporary myth. You hear simplicity and you immediately think of Marie Kondo clearing out drawers, making everything look aesthetically tidy.
And that can be helpful.
It can be. A tidy space can support a peaceful mind. But minimalism primarily tidies the home.
And Buddhist simplicity, what is it tidy?
It frees the heart. It does that by removing the mental defilements. Greed, hate, and delusion. You can have a perfectly minimalist, Scandinavian designed apartment and still have a mind cluttered with rigid political views, or simmering resentment toward a coworker, or an intense need for likes on social media.
So one deals with surfaces, the other deals with the core architecture of the self.
Precisely.
Okay, myth 5. This one suggests simplicity means rejecting beauty. You have to avoid all art, all music, all aesthetic pleasure.
This goes back to that idea of sense restraint. The correction here is that the problem isn't the beauty itself, whether it's a beautiful sunset or a complex piece of music or incredible architecture. The problem is the clinging and the intoxication.
What do you mean by intoxication?
It's when we use that beauty purely as sensory fuel to distract the mind or to generate more craving.
So as lay people, we can enjoy, say, a piece of classical music if the purpose is to calm the mind or appreciate the artistry.
Yes.
Rather than just using it as constant background noise to avoid silence.
Exactly. If the object of beauty generates gratitude or a sense of calm, it's supporting simplicity. If it generates envy or craving or this restlessness because you must own it or you must experience it again and again, then it's leading you toward complication.
And finally, myth 6, that simplicity is just for monastics.
This is another easy cultural excuse we give ourselves. We look at the Buddha's monastic life and we say, well, that's great for them, but I have a job and kids and a mortgage. That's not for me.
But that's not what the Buddha taught.
Not at all. He specifically praised lay practitioners who embodied few duties and were easy to support. Simplicity is a universal training. It applies to everything: how you speak, how you spend your money, how you manage your social life. It's fully applicable whether you wear robes or a business suit.
To make this training feel more concrete, let's look at 3 really powerful role models who embody this idea of inner freedom that's achieved through external simplicity.
Okay.
And first, we have to start with the ultimate example, the Buddha himself.
The Buddha's life really serves as the definition of the middle way. I mean, he renounced the ultimate luxury of a palace. He was a prince, after all. He chose to adopt a life of intentional simplicity. His material existence was just the bare necessities, not because he was poor, but because he saw that material attachment was the biggest obstacle to spiritual liberation.
And the purpose of that renunciation wasn't to deprive himself, but to give him intense focus for his teaching.
Exactly. His simplicity enabled his effort. Every single aspect of his life, from the patched robes to the practice of collecting alms food, it all reinforced detachment and humility, creating a life that was perfectly tailored to his spiritual goal.
Next, we have a remarkable modern figure who translated this very principle into political and social action, Mahatma Gandhi.
Gandhi is a perfect example of chosen simplicity in the lay world. He wasn't born poor, not at all, yet he chose a life that was stripped of complexity out of a deep ethical principle.
And he linked that personal practice with social responsibility.
He did. He wore simple khadi, which is hand-spun cloth. He practiced regular days of silence to conserve his energy, and he made sure his speech was always ethical.
His life really shows that simplicity can be a moral strength that actually impacts society. He famously connected the internal choice to the external world with that quote.
Live simply so that others may simply live.
It's so powerful. It suggests that your personal lack of craving actually frees up resources and energy for the entire community.
It connects simplicity to a profound sense of justice and fairness. You're not only freeing your own mind, you're reducing your footprint on the planet and on the labor of other people.
And then we have an astonishing contemporary example that brings this principle right into the 21st century. Ajahn Siripanya.
This story is often told just to stress the element of choice involved here. Ajahn Siripanya is the son of a powerful Malaysian billionaire. Immense wealth, powerful connections.
By all worldly measures, he was set for life.
Completely. Yet in his late teens, he walked away from that staggering inheritance and chose to be ordained in the rigorous Thai forest tradition.
That is the ultimate renunciation in the face of modern consumerism.
It is. It's a profound, living testament to the truth that true freedom is not in riches, but in renunciation. He traded this immense material opportunity for a life of daily discipline, one meal a day, deep meditation in a small hut, just living the practice of contentment and few duties.
These three role models, they really show us that simplicity is a rigorous, chosen practice, no matter what your background is.
So we've established the profound internal nature of this training. Now let's transition to the payoff, the why. Why should we even embark on this difficult training?
And the great master Ajahn Chah, he captures the mechanics of this so beautifully.
He does. His quote perfectly frames the benefits. He said, "If you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will be free."
It's directly proportional.
The peace we're all seeking is directly proportional to our capacity to just loosen our grip on things.
So the primary, most immediate benefit is mental clarity. In a world that's defined by cognitive overload, how does simplicity act as a sort of mental cleanser?
Well, simplicity creates less clutter, more clarity, and more joy, because we are systematically reducing the mental noise. Think of your mind as a computer CPU.
Okay.
When you're tracking complex social drama online, worrying about 20 different purchases, and consuming 5 hours of news a day, that CPU is running at 100% capacity just on background processes.
We call that cognitive load. The weight of just making constant decisions and managing all that information.
Exactly. Simplicity reduces that load. When you practice fewness of wishes and sense restraint, you're basically just closing those unnecessary browser tabs. The mind becomes less distracted, less complicated, and that frees up processing power for genuine focus and insight.
That's the freedom from restlessness that we all crave.
It is.
So inner peace isn't just some fluffy concept. It's a direct consequence of efficiently managing the raw sensory data you allow into your awareness.
Absolutely. When you guard those sense doors, and we'll talk about this later with digital simplicity, you reduce the raw materials that fuel mental agitation and restlessness. A quiet mind is a clear mind.
Okay, the second benefit, this is the most counterintuitive one for so many of us, that less expectation leads to more happiness.
Yeah, in our culture, happiness is marketed as getting everything you want.
Exactly.
We need to just flip that entire mindset. Simplicity introduces a new formula: lower expectation, higher happiness. It's a process of allowing yourself to genuinely appreciate what is good enough instead of always chasing the next better version of whatever you currently have.
This sounds like a fundamental rejection of the whole consumer treadmill.
It is. And the wisdom of the wishing game story really clarifies the profound benefit of this low expectation state.
Okay, let's hear it.
So let's imagine 5 children playing this game where each one of them gets one wish granted.
Okay, I'm picturing the scene. The first child.
The first child, young and simple, immediately wishes for an ice cream cone. A simple, immediate sensory pleasure. The wish is satisfied right away. Happy kid.
The second child is a bit savvier, thinking ahead.
A little more strategic. They wish for an entire ice cream factory so they never have to wait and can have endless flavors. Their desire is already one step removed from the immediate object.
Getting more complicated.
Right. Then the third child, who's very worldly and strategic, thinks even bigger. I wish for $1 billion. With that, they could buy factories, endless ice cream, anything they could ever imagine. Their wish is for ultimate material power.
And the fourth child.
The fourth child, realizing the limitation, tries to game the system. They wish for 3 wishes, then they use one of those to wish for 3 more, setting up this endless spiraling cycle of wanting.
That is the perfect metaphor for the restless modern mind that just always needs more options and more choices.
Exactly. But then comes the 5th child. Quiet, calm, just watching the frenzy of the others, and when it's their turn, they simply say, I wish I had no more wishes.
Wow. That is stunning. That's the ultimate mic drop.
The insight is so profound. The true benefit of simplicity is not getting everything you want. It is the freedom of not wanting anything else.
It's the end of the game.
It's the end of the game. It's the realization that your life, Just as it is enough. When you reach that state of zero wish, you are completely content because there is no gap between where you are and where you think you should be.
And that gap is where all the dissatisfaction lives.
That's where it lives.
Okay, and the third benefit, more time for what matters. If the modern definition of success is being impossibly busy, simplicity really challenges that. When we simplify our duties and our livelihood, what crucial time do we actually reclaim?
We reclaim the time that is necessary for spiritual cultivation and genuine human connection. Modern complexity is designed to fill every single waking moment with either work or consumption.
Right.
By becoming easily supported and having few duties, we carve out this essential space for things we so often neglect.
Like what specifically?
Time for rest and physical health, which is often the very first thing we sacrifice for ambition. Time for genuine connection with our loved ones, which requires our presence, not just our proximity.
And most crucially?
Most crucially, time for reflection and spiritual purpose time, to sit down and contemplate the big questions of life, which is the very foundation of practicing the Dharma.
So it's the complexity, then, that keeps us distracted from the very purpose of our existence.
It is. Simplicity forces us to sit down and ask, what am I actually optimizing my life for?
It frees you from the maintenance cycle.
Completely. It allows you to use that reclaimed mental and physical energy for intentional, meaningful activity.
We've established the profound why and the internal nature of simplicity. Now let's get intensely practical. Dr. Phang Cheng Kar's framework provides 8 pillars for the layperson. This is an action roadmap for modern training.
The how.
The how. And we start where most people start, but we have to go much deeper. Material simplicity.
Right. Material simplicity is the easiest place to start, but it can be the hardest to sustain because we are constantly exposed to this trap of escalating needs.
Okay.
We have to learn to distinguish between the 4 fundamental necessities: clothing, food, shelter, and medicine, and everything else, which is a want. And wants have this sneaky way of spiraling out of control.
And nothing illustrates that spiral better than the story of the nun and the cat. It's a perfect metaphor for how materialism begins with just one tiny, seemingly logical step.
It's a fantastic story. So there was this kind nun who lived a truly simple life in a secluded forest cave. Her life was dedicated to deep meditation and teaching. Her only real possession was her robe.
Okay.
But one day, she notices a hole has been chewed through her robe. A mouse had been busy. So she patches the hole and she thinks, if I just had a cat, the mice wouldn't be a problem. I could meditate in peace.
A very rational, simple solution to protect her few belongings.
That's the key friction point. It seems so logical. She mentions this to the local villagers and they lovingly gift her a cat. Problem solved, right?
I have a feeling it's not.
Not quite. The cat needed milk, so now she's thinking, if I only had a cow, the cat would be fed and I wouldn't have to bother the villagers all the time. The villagers, being kind, gave her a cow.
Okay, so now she has a cat and a cow. The simplicity is already starting to erode pretty quickly.
Right. Then the cow needed a place to graze, so she realized she needed a field. She acquired a piece of land. The field needed tending, so she took in a boy to help her with the labor. The boy needed food, clothing, a place to sleep, so she had a small hut built for him.
Wait a minute. She started with one robe, and now she's basically running a small farm operation.
Precisely. Her simple life was gone. When people came to her cave seeking advice on meditation, she was just constantly distracted. She'd sigh and say, I'm terribly busy with the boy and the hut, the field, the cow, the cat, all to stop the mice from chewing my robe.
The very simple problem she started with was now completely dwarfed by the complexity of her own solution.
And that's the profound realization. She immediately let it all go. She returned the animals, she dismissed the boy with kindness, and with a peaceful smile, she just sewed another patch on her robe. The realization was, this is how materialism begins.
Wow.
It starts with one small logical need, and it quickly escalates into this web of maintenance and duty and distraction that just destroys your inner peace.
That is a perfect cautionary tale for anyone who has ever thought, I just need this one more upgrade to finally be happy.
Right.
So to break that cycle, we need to go beyond the basic recycling mantra. We need to expand the R's.
Yes. We move beyond the standard reduce, reuse, and recycle to include 3 more vital preventative practices. These really enforce a frugal mindset.
What's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most important, is refuse. Saying no upfront to unnecessary items, to promotional giveaways, single-use plastics, or even to social invitations that just clutter up your time.
Refusing is a lot easier than having to recycle something later.
Oh, absolutely. The second is rot composting your organic waste. This is simplicity applied to our environmental duty. You're transforming potential clutter into nourishment, embracing the natural cycle instead of just accumulating trash.
And the last one?
And finally, rethink repair. It's about developing a conscious habit of fixing things instead of automatically replacing them. This fights against that culture of planned obsolescence and encourages purposeful consumption, delaying the impulse for emotional buying.
Okay, that's material simplicity. The second pillar, speech simplicity. We often focus on the physical or the digital, but how much mental energy do we waste on complicated, unskillful speech?
A huge amount. Gossip, complaining, or just that constant idle chatter to fill the silence. Speech simplicity is a massive energy conservation technique.
Yeah.
When we engage in unnecessary chatter, we are externalizing and complicating our own inner world. The practice of silence, which Mahatma Gandhi famously employed, he had a 24-hour silence day every single week. It just demonstrates the power of conserving spiritual energy.
So what should be the guideline for when we do speak? Because, I mean, we can't be silent all the time.
Well, we should adopt the core principle, which is often attributed to the Greeks, but is also echoed in Buddhist thought. Speak only if it improves upon the silence.
That is a very high bar for most modern conversations.
It is. If we applied that rule to our typical social gathering, we would be mostly silent. It requires prioritizing listening more than talking and valuing profound silence over shallow noise.
And when we do choose to speak, what's the filter?
The sources offer 4 really stringent criteria for ethical and simple speech. Before you open your mouth, you should ask, is it truthful? Is it beneficial? Is it kind? And is it timely?
That framework helps filter our words so effectively. You know, if it's true but it's cruel, we should probably keep quiet. If it's kind but completely irrelevant to the situation, maybe we just wait.
It ensures that our words serve a purpose beyond just, self-aggrandizement or ego. Simple speech conserves energy, it minimizes regret, and it prevents the creation of those complicated, messy relationship dynamics that are built on gossip or casual lies.
Okay, pillar 3, expectation simplicity. We've already introduced the formula. Lower expectation, higher happiness.
Right.
But how do we actively train our mind to lower expectations without just becoming complacent or, settling for mediocrity?
It's a very subtle mental shift. We practice cultivating gratitude that the current moment, right now, with all of its flaws, is simply good enough.
The antidote to perfectionism.
Exactly. Perfectionism is a form of complicated mental tyranny. We have to stop demanding that reality conform to our internal, idealized script of how things should be.
So if my flight is delayed, instead of getting angry about the lack of punctuality, I see the delay as good enough time to read a book I brought.
Precisely. You shift the focus from what is lacking to what is currently present. And this aligns perfectly with the wisdom of Lao Tzu. He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough.
That wisdom is what we saw in the 5th child in the wishing game, that zero-wish state.
Yes. When you can truly accept the current moment, your life, your partner, your job, your reality as enough, you stop that exhausting inner struggle of always wanting to change or fix the external world or other people.
And this isn't complacency.
It's not. It's a profound form of surrender into contentment. This acceptance is often the biggest mental hurdle because our culture rewards the relentless pursuit of better. Simplicity allows us to appreciate what we have, even on a day that is truly difficult.
Right. Recognizing, as Alice Morse said, that not every day is a good day, but there's always good in a day.
Finding that good.
Okay, the next pillar. Digital and social media simplicity. For the modern person, this one feels like fighting a giant, aggressive current. Our entire digital world is designed to pull us in and complicate our focus.
It really is. And this is the contemporary practice of guarding the sense doors, a crucial ancient training that we now have to apply to modern technology. We have to understand that constant, cluttered digital input inevitably leads to a clouded mind. We need a ruthless editing process for our screens.
The critique we often hear, though, is the fear of missing out, FOMO, or the fear of professional consequences if we turn off our notifications. How does simplicity address that friction?
Well, we address FOMO by acknowledging that it's not really information you fear missing. It's the craving for distraction and the need for validation that's driving that impulse.
Ah, okay.
And we can use the 4U method to regain control.
Let's break that down practically.
First, Uninstall unnecessary apps, especially the ones that feed your anxiety or your need for validation. If you only use an app once a month, just delete it and use the web browser version when you need it.
Simple enough.
Second, unsubscribe from newsletters and emails that just distract you. Treat your inbox like a VIP list, not a public junk drawer. Third, unfollow accounts that disturb your peace, that spark envy, or just generate intellectual agitation.
The ultimate filter. If it doesn't serve peace, it gets cut. And what's the final U?
The final U is the internal goal, to unclutter the mind itself. And there are practical techniques here. Implement tech fast, where you designate specific hours or days without screens.
I've heard turning your phone to grayscale can help.
It really does. Studies show that removing the color makes the device significantly less appealing and addictive. And most importantly, practice purposeful scrolling log on with a clear intention. Check the one thing you need to and then log off. You have to ask yourself constantly, am I using this device or is this device using me?
Pillar 5. Simplicity in eating. This is crucial for both physical and mental well-being. Yet we often turn food into this huge source of complication.
We do. Emotional eating, restrictive diets, or just excessive fussiness. The two core principles here are moderation and gratitude. For moderation, we can look to the Japanese concept of hara hachibu,
It is.
eating until your stomach is only about 80% full.
That seems like an immediate discipline, especially in cultures that really prioritize cleaning your plate in huge portions.
It is, but it prevents that sluggishness, that mental fog, and that dissatisfaction that comes with overindulging. The 80% rule leaves room for life, rather than demanding you take a nap after every single meal. It directly supports your ability to practice sense restraint.
And how do we integrate gratitude into a simple meal?
That's where we can practice something like the spirit of itadakimasu, the saying, I humbly receive. This practice shifts the focus away from sheer sensory pleasure or a feeling of entitlement toward appreciating the immense effort, the natural resources, and the life force that went into producing the food on your plate.
So it ensures eating is a mindful act of nourishment, not just a craving being satisfied.
Exactly.
Okay. Relationship simplicity. This is a big one. Relationships can become so complicated, full of drama and conflicting expectations and just the constant friction of two egos interacting.
It's primarily about letting go of the ego's absolute need to be correct, to be dominant, or to be right in every single situation. And this is all encapsulated in one pivotal question you have to internalize. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy?
That is often the single most difficult question to face, especially in disagreement where you actually have the facts on your side. We just conflate being right with winning or protecting your identity.
We do, and the need to prove a point often costs us our peace and the harmony of the relationship. This is so beautifully illustrated by the story of the duck and the chicken.
Tell us the story.
So, a newly married couple was walking happily in the woods, and suddenly they heard a noise, an audible quack, quack.
Yeah.
The wife, maybe not as familiar with farm animals, insisted, "Oh, look, darling, that's a chicken." And the husband, a man who knows his farm animals and probably prides himself on it, gently corrects her, "No, my love, that was a duck."
I can already sense the impending storm. The ego is fully engaged.
The wife insisted, "No, it was a chicken." And the husband, fueled by his factual correctness, responded, "Listen, I am telling you that is a duck." And the argument just escalated. The sound kept echoing, quack, quack. But the couple became increasingly angry and resentful.
It's so relatable.
And then the husband looked at his wife and he saw tears welling up in her eyes because of the conflict, and he just stopped. He remembered his vow to cherish her happiness over his own pride. He softened his voice and said gently, "You know what, darling? You might be right. That is a chicken."
And the argument just immediately vanished because he chose harmony over his ego.
Exactly. The quack quack continued, but they couldn't hear it because they were busy enjoying each other's company again. He chose happiness and simplicity over the complication of being correct. Relationship simplicity relies on adhering to harmlessness, the 5 precepts, as the fundamental guardian of the relationship. We have to prioritize kindness and presence over the need for dominance.
Next, time simplicity. This is our defense against the toxic culture of busyness, where feeling overwhelmed has somehow become this strange status symbol.
Right, if we aren't constantly moving, we feel like we're failures.
So what do?
We must intentionally maintain few duties and a simple livelihood, and this requires actively saying no to excessive obligations. We need to distinguish between productivity and just manic activity. Productivity is wise effort. Virya. Manic activity is just complication disguised as competence.
For someone who is constantly juggling work and family and social demands, how do you practically start cutting down duties?
You start by ruthlessly prioritizing time for meaningful purpose. Rest, health, genuine connection, play, and spiritual cultivation. We tend to schedule every meeting and every chore, but we have to schedule time for ourselves that is completely free of external demands.
You call that sacred me time.
Yes, it's a dedicated, non-negotiable block of time for self-compassion and reflection. This might be a silent walk, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea, or just resting without any distraction. If you do not prioritize simplicity in your time, the world will fill it with complication for you.
So it's about reclaiming agency over your schedule, rather than letting your schedule dictate your inner state.
That is it exactly.
Okay, our final pillar, knowledge simplicity. Here we address the modern ailment of infobesity. We are drowning in data, struggling with fake news, and constantly reaching for Dr. Google, which usually just causes more anxiety than it relieves.
Knowledge overload is incredibly anxiety-inducing. We feel this compulsion to know everything about everything, but in fact, this breadth of shallow knowledge often paralyzes our wisdom. Simplicity here is about wise filtering. It's about quality over quantity.
So we need to apply simplicity to our learning itself.
Absolutely. Filter your sources. Focus on authentic, reliable knowledge that genuinely nourishes your insight, rather than just consuming every piece of available spiritual or worldly information you can find. If you spend 5 hours a day researching a new concept, but you never actually practice what you read, you are complicating your mind, not simplifying it.
And this relates back to the need for human guidance, doesn't it?
It does. Practice wise association, seek guidance from wise, living people, from teachers and mentors, rather than relying solely on the vast, anonymous data set of the internet or AI tools like ChatGPT for deep existential guidance. Simplicity in knowledge is recognizing the mental cost of shallow research and choosing instead to focus deeply on a few authentic sources. It is knowing what to ignore.
We've mapped out a truly demanding training program. I mean, it's a lot. But we're all lay people living with mortgages and social media and jobs.
Yeah.
We're going to stumble.
Inevitable.
You're going to binge watch that show, get caught up in gossip, or acquire something purely out of craving.
When we inevitably fall short, what is the right response?
This is maybe the most important part of the entire training. When we stumble, our instinct is often guilt, self-criticism, self-blame. But that feeling of failure, it actually shows your sincerity. It proves you care about the path of peace.
Right.
Guilt, however, is counterproductive. It just weighs down the mind and makes the next attempt even harder.
So we need to use skillful means, or upaya, to avoid that self-punishment cycle. How do we initiate that gentle reset?
You need to consciously replace guilt with gentle curiosity. So instead of that inner critic screaming, "I failed again, I have no discipline," you pause, you take a breath, and you shift the question to a point of analysis.
Yeah.
What made guarding the sense door so hard today? Was I tired? Was I hungry? Did I associate with an unskillful person? That reframes the mistake from a personal moral flaw into a data point for future success. It transforms regret into insight.
Precisely. You are analyzing the situation, not criticizing the self. The core insight here is to shift from perfection to progress. You are not trying to be perfect overnight. You are learning to notice when you fall short and then consciously beginning again.
The act of returning to the present moment, no matter how many times you fall, is the real strength.
That's the practice.
And for that moment when we realize we've been unmindful, we needed a clear, compassionate phrase to reset ourselves.
Use the loving-kindness reset. When you notice the lapse, rather than plunging into self-blame or planning some massive punishing detox, you just pause, you inhale, and you use this phrase. May I be kind to myself. May I begin again with joy.
That immediately reintroduces compassion into the practice and prevents that whole cycle of shame.
It makes the process sustainable. We don't try to fix everything at once.
We use micro-habits to regain momentum.
Exactly. Don't declare war on complication. Just start small. Commit to 2 minutes of silence before you start work, or 1 app-free hour every afternoon, or silently repeating guarding the door before you check an unnecessary notification.
And finally, when the guilt is strongest, we need to remember the principle of depersonalization.
Yes. This relates to the concept of not self, or anatta. We have to remember that the lapse, that moment of anger, the impulse purchase, the gossip session, it is a passing cloud. It is not your permanent identity.
That's so important.
When we adopt the view of not self, we can remember this unskillful action or craving is not entirely me. It's a mental habit, a conditioned response. Even the wisest people struggled with temptation and distraction before their awakening. A momentary slip does not define your worth. It simply shows where the training needs a little more attention.
This has been an extensive and, I think, a deeply practical exploration of what it means to truly train to be simple in the 21st century.
Focusing on inner freedom, not just how things look.
Exactly. So let's look at the three main takeaways we hope you can carry forward into your week.
Okay. First, remember that simplicity is an internal training. It is the daily, moment-to-moment practice of cultivating inner freedom from the tyranny of greed, hate, and delusion, using methods like fewness of wishes and sense restraint.
Second, contentment is achieved by lowering expectation. It's the profound wisdom of that zero wish from the wishing game, the realization that your life, just as it is right now, is inherently enough.
And third, practice with kindness and wise effort, not with guilt. When you inevitably stumble, use that moment as data for insight. Restart immediately with micro habits and use the loving kindness reset to always begin again with joy.
You know, simplicity is not the goal of running away from the world. It's the spiritual strength you need to genuinely help others in a complicated world. If your vessel, your mind, is simple and clear and unburdened by endless personal wants, it can hold more joy and, crucially, more steady compassion for all those around you who are struggling with complexity.
And we end where we began, with the ultimate summary of human wealth.
Contentment is the greatest wealth.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Go out and find the joy in what is enough.